With the new My Lowe's Pro Rewards American Express card, earn 3 points per dollar spent on Lowe's qualifying purchases for the first 6 months after card account opening. Plus, save 5% every day on eligible purchases at Lowe's and earn points on eligible purchases everywhere else Amex is accepted. Card members get more at Lowe's. Subject to credit approval. 5% can't be combined with any other offer. Exclusions and restrictions apply. Points subject to loyalty terms at Lowe's.com/terms and credit reward terms at Synchrony.com/MLPRA-terms. Visit Lowe's.com/business credit.
We have the tech to get food delivered in 15 minutes, but we all have horror stories about buying tickets. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage. Get amazing tickets in just a few taps. Fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And the Game Time guarantee means authentic tickets at the best price every time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to concerts, sports, comedy, and more with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
Welcome along to the Irish NFL show, now proudly part of the Bleav Network. We're so thrilled to be part of the Bleav Network, and we're enjoying the many perks of being part of such a great network, in as much as the fact that it has opened the doors to the extended Bleav Network family. And with that in mind, I'm delighted to welcome 8-time Emmy Award winner and host of the Bleav In Lions podcast, a guy who's been covering sport in the Michigan area for over 25 years, Trevor Thompson. Trevor, thanks for coming on.
Kieran, the pleasure is all mine. Always fun to talk Lions and anything related to Detroit sports. It's one of the greatest sports cities in the USA. Proud to be here. Also want to say I'm a proud Canadian. So a lot of Canadian fans are also Lions fans and Detroit fans, especially for where I'm from, very close to the Detroit-Windsor border. So it's always been a passion of mine, the Lions and Detroit sports team. So it's been an honor to be here over the last 25 years in the Motor City covering their teams. And it's a pleasure to be with you here today. Thanks for having me.
That's great to hear. A brother listening in Vancouver, so yeah, we've a little Canadian audience for in a small pocket in Western.
I lived in Vancouver for 3 years. I lived in Vancouver for 3 years years ago. Yeah, it's a great town. It's
a great city, such a wonderful part of the world, and I've been lucky enough to get over there a couple of times. So yeah, no, it's a must for anyone who hasn't been. Trevor, let's get into it. The Lions, I mean, you say it's such a great sporting town and such a great sporting city. That has not been hindered by the arrival of Dan Campbell. I mean, the Dan Campbell era has risen Detroit into, has laid claim for Detroit being America's team. I know Cowboys fans mightn't be pleased to hear that, but they seem to have become many people's second favorite team over the last couple of years. All that being said, last season was not one that Lions fans will like to remember. Listening to Dan Campbell this week, he's talked about the pajama party that is the OTAs. Okay, yes. Like the NFL is an absolute hype machine. You know it, and I know it, in terms of keeping fan engagement going all year round, fan engagement, media engagement. Dan Campbell and the Lions organization are having none of that at this time of the year. They want to move on. They don't, they did not want to get involved in the hype of these schedule release videos. I thought their schedule release video was fantastic. It was,
I loved it too.
Strictly business. Same again when he was talking about OTAs. I mean, the media want to drag him into this. Who's going well? Who looks great? Who's going to be a star? And he's basically shutting it down, saying, I'm not going to tell you who's going to be a star based on OTAs. They really are trying to just fast forward to the business part of the season because they want to move on as quickly as possible.
It's absolutely true. And I love what he said, the pajama party that is. And no talking about any hype. Let's get down to business. Let's see it play out on the field. It's only May. There's a long way to go. We've got a lot of things to get through. We've got to see who's really ready. And he also said that there's going to be a lot of open competition for a lot of spots in camp. And he thinks it's going to be one of the more competitive camps that they had when they finally get to the training camp and get on with the business of the preseason and into the regular season. A lot of jobs up for grabs. A lot of guys have to prove themselves. And Kieran, what they've had over the last couple of years, and one of the reasons last season wasn't as successful as they wanted it to be and did not make the playoffs, was for a second straight year in a row, injuries to key players, injuries all over the field, injuries at inopportune times to very, very valuable players. You need to only look at their safety room to discover that. You look at Kirby Joseph, they had just paid and be the highest paid safety in the league, expecting big things from him. Barely played all season long. And then you get to Brian Branch at the end of the season, tore his Achilles. He's going to miss part of camp, and then we'll start later in the season as well. But these are two of the best safeties in the league and very much a key to what they want to do defensively. Without them on the field, they're simply not the same team. Next man up is, the mantra in the NFL. We all know that. But next man up isn't playing at the elite level that these guys play week in and week out, which is why they get the big bucks, why they're all pro status players, and why they're so key to this defense. So when you look around the field over the last couple of years, injuries have played a key part in what this team was not able to do. Now, having said that, coming into this year, you're getting some of these guys back, some of the guys with veteran experience. Getting them healthier on the field is going to provide more depth, going to provide more experience for this team, shelter some of the younger players who were asked to do a bit more than maybe they were ready to do over the last couple of seasons. And that's going to bode well as far as returning to this team's status to where they think they are one of the elite teams in the NFC, the top of their division, 2 years running coming into last year. So that's where they need to get back to be a serious Super Bowl contender. And it's all going to depend on the health of this team. Now, a couple of things they've done to help ensure these guys are healthy. They didn't have rookie camp during training camp. They are not going to play opponents at the training camp this season. So they're going to try and keep these guys fresh. Only 3 preseason games. We'll try and keep these guys fresh as far as that goes. We'll see how much playing time the starters get when they get into the preseason, but they're doing all they can to keep these guys fresh, keep these guys healthy, keep them on the field so they can be that Super Bowl contender they think they are.
Yeah, and you mentioned that next man up mentality, and we've been talking about the Lions in terms of injuries over the last 2 seasons, as you said. And it's certainly not the way you want to start a season. Looking at the questionable health of the guys you mentioned, Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch, maybe even Sam Laporta, but you mentioned that you're going to start the season without Brian Branch. That being said, how much of a key factor is it that schedule release was kind of, kind to the Lions, or potentially kind to the Lions early on in that season? I mean, you're at home to the Saints, you're at the Bills, you're home to the Jets, you go to Carolina, go to Arizona. I mean, there's 4 of those games in the first 5 that you have to believe that the Lions will have a good chance of winning. How key is that going to be later on in the season in allowing Brian Branch to mind himself, right, and be ready to come back when he's ready, and not forcing him back too soon?
It's going to be everything. And here's another reason why. I'll just go back to last season. Not only were some of those players injured, some key players, but you were also breaking in a brand new defensive coordinator and a brand new offensive coordinator. Aaron Glenn took the head coaching job with the New York Jets, and then Ben Johnson took the job in the division with the Chicago Bears, and really had a great season there. But you had to find some continuity again in your coaching staff, guys in new roles, new play designs on both sides of the ball. This year, they've got Drew Petzing coming in as their offensive coordinator. Calvin Shepard's going to have the second year under his belt. They're trying to integrate new players and then trying to welcome in some rookies as well. What they're going to have an opportunity to do through training camp, through the preseason, early on with this schedule, is get some continuity and some chemistry developed between the coaches, between the new players that are in the lineup, the guy next to you, and getting used to what he's doing, how maybe the cadences are different, or the play calls are different, the terminology may be different. All these kinds of things you'll have to get an opportunity to work on early in the season against what you think and hope are some opponents that you can take advantage of both at home and on the road. So early in the season, it is going to be very crucial for them to take advantage of their schedule, to get the continuity down, but to also put some wins on the board. You look at the last 2 games of the regular season schedule. They're going to Chicago and Green Bay, not places you want to play at the end of the season when you're in the midst of a playoff battle and you're battling the elements as well against those 2 teams on the road. So you can stack some wins early in the season, take advantage of that schedule, get yourself in a great position when it gets tougher down the road at the end of the season, that you're in a good position as far as the playoffs go, and you're feeling good about your team, and everybody has come together and gelled with new coordinators and new personnel on both the offensive, defensive line, and as far as the special teams go. So that's something we're going to look for, and how they can take advantage of that early on in the season for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned the loss of those coordinators last year. And I mean, aside from the injuries, I mean, it had to sting. And obviously there was going to be a transition in losing 2 of the better offensive and defensive coordinators in the league. And you see the success that Ben Johnson has had. And you mentioned Chicago. I mean, he goes out there and, Chicago ball out, and they become, maybe they challenged the Lions for that America's second favorite team last year. I mean, they turned a lot of heads. I mean, how does it feel? How it must feel like, going through a breakup and then seeing your ex out around the town, and not alone seeing her all the time, but seeing right, how well she's doing. It must sting a little bit. And obviously there were teething problems that led to the ultimate demotion and then replacement of John Martin with Drew Petzing. But you're hearing that Jared Goff is very excited about what Drew Petzing can bring and shore up that offensive line, because you saw what Ben Johnson brought to Chicago, and that offensive line at times was poetry in motion last year. That, you know, it was amazing to watch, and that's where the Lions seemed to fall down. I mean, it wasn't as if they didn't have that talent on the field; they just didn't seem to have that cohesion. Is there a good buzz, even at this early part of the season, about Drew Petzing and how he might be able to restore that rhythm on the offense?
Yeah, there really is. And I'm looking forward to see what he brings to the table as well. And he's in an opportunity now where I know he ran a different sort of system when he went over in Arizona, but he didn't have the weapons in Arizona that he's going to have here on this offense. You mentioned a guy like Sam Laporta. He hadn't had something like that. That guy's a weapon. He's lethal within this offense the way he'd been used when Ben Johnson was here. Jahmyr Gibbs is turning into one of the premier running backs in the league. And they pick up Isaiah Pacheco to replace David Montgomery as the backup there. He was fantastic when he was at the peak of his game before he got injured. I'm very interested to see what he can bring at this stage of his career and what he can bring within this offense and how creative Drew Petzing can get with a guy like that. And then you talk about their wide receivers. You've got a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams, and then Isaac Tesla, who they moved up last year in the draft to get in the third round. This guy has elite skills. He flashed them last year, 6 touchdowns, a couple of them with one hand, shows that he can really go up, and he's a very competitive receiver, big 6'3", 240, so he's got that kind of size. He's got very sure hands. How they'll use him going forward, because Ben Johnson somehow got Khalif Raymond to leave Detroit and go join him in Chicago. We'll see how he uses him there, but that opens up an opportunity for a guy like Isaac Tesla. So they've got some weapons that Drew Petzing didn't have in other places. They're going to open up that offense. I'm really, really excited to see what he's going to bring to the table, how creative he can get with a guy like Jared Goff under center. And then one thing we didn't mention, one of the reasons that running game and that offensive line didn't look the same last year, Frank Ragnow decided to retire at the last minute. And that's the type of guy you just can't replace. He was one of the reasons that running game was so successful. So Cade Mays has now come in. He's going to be the center. We'll see how they integrate him with this new offensive line, with those guys in those skill positions that do have the chemistry and do have the experience together, how you can use these guys, these all-pro caliber players, to get this offense continuing to hum at an elite level is going to be very interesting indeed to see how it all plays out. And again, something they're going to want to take advantage of early in the schedule to see how they can work these sort of things out and be humming along at peak form later in the season.
Yeah, as we said, there's no shortage of stars. You know, you talk about an Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Tesla, as you mentioned, who's he built quite a highlight reel last year. But we've been talking so much about Sonic and Knuckles on this show, and obviously you break up that dynamic, Joey. You lose Knuckles, and you'd wonder, is Jahmyr Gibbs, is he going to feel that effect in a negative way in terms of having to shoulder the carries, shoulder that, and put his body through that extra bit of wear and tear? I know Isaiah Pacheco comes in and he has the potential to maybe be a tails as opposed to a Knuckles, but how do you see that playing out? I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs is an elite back in the league in his own right. I mean, he doesn't necessarily need to be part of a 1-2 punch by any manner of means, but it certainly must have helped the fact that that there were two of them to shoulder the load. How do you see that playing out this year?
Absolutely. The kid is a fantastic athlete, a fantastic runner in space. You get him the ball in the open space, he's going to be creative enough, and he's got the blazing speed to create his own once he does get the ball in his hands. But he is going to miss David Montgomery. David Montgomery took up a lot of hard snaps. And when you become the first guy, the guy they're going to give the ball to more and more and more, it's going to wear you down, regardless of how talented you are and how many hits you can escape. It is going to wear you down. So it's going to be a different type of season for him without David Montgomery there. Now, like I said, Isaiah Pacheco was an elite back at his peak in Kansas City when he was healthy. We'll see just where he is at this stage of his career. But when you have the opportunity to give a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs the ball, a guy who this point in the season is breaking records set by the great Barry Sanders and just setting the franchise on fire as far as that goes and creating the kind of buzz around that position that hasn't been here since Barry Sanders was taking the football as a Detroit Lion, you really do have something special there. The guy is elite. We've already talked about him. A co-host on this show, Glover Quinn, talks in glowing terms of him, and not to get ahead of himself, but says at this point he's flashing Hall of Fame potential. And that's what we're looking at with this kid right now. So if he can stay on track, he certainly has all the tools, all the skills, all the desire, the work ethic to get it done. How they're going to use him, how creative they can be is something we're going to find out with Drew Petzing. But the skills are there. The desire is there. He's got the toughness, but it is going to be a different season for him. So I'm going to be very interested to see how he holds up during this season, how worn down he gets, how much Isaiah Pacheco can carry of that backup load. He's not going to be the same as a David Montgomery, who was the thumper that he was, very durable, very reliable, experienced, had a nose for the end zone when you got in the red zone. Those are going to be tough things to replace, but it's all going to play itself out, and I'm interested, along with the rest of the Lions Nation, to see how it does play itself out, Kieran.
Yeah, you mentioned player turnover, and you touched on Frank Ragnow and a lot of those. That there's been a lot of movement on that offensive line. On the defensive side, of the ball, you lose Alex Anzalone, and I know in terms of defense, Trey Hendrickson gets a lot of the I suppose the headline space, and rightly so. Such a dynamic rusher that he is, but you lose Alex Anzalone, maybe an underrated part of that defense. I suppose how much of a loss is it to lose a guy and a team captain and a spiritual leader like Alex Anzalone? And with that in mind, how much of an assurance is it that you go out and you sign Jack Campbell this week? He takes over those team captain duties. He comes out and he says things like, I want to be a linebacker, I wanted to be a Lion no matter what. He did not put too much emphasis on holding out to be the highest paid player in his position. He seemed to put the team first. It speaks to the type of player that you'd imagine Dan Campbell wants to have in his locker room. So, on one hand, you suffer that loss of Alex Anzalone, but how much of it is an assurance that the likes of a Jack Campbell stepped up in that way?
Yeah, well, Jack Campbell may not have been the highest paid at the position, but he's the second highest paid. So I don't think he's going to miss any meals. Life's going to be pretty good for him. But that is the kind of respect the organization has for him. This organization is really, over the last several years, with the key parts to their core, they have paid them accordingly. They want to keep that core together. They believe in these guys, and that's the message they're sending throughout the room. That's the message they sent by signing Jack Campbell to a 4-year, $81 million deal. He's in place. He's got that heart. He's got that hunger. But what Alex Anzalone brought was he was the total package in coverage. He was the reason they were able to play one of the most 4-3 defensive sets in the league last year. He was able to drop back in coverage, be very, very effective. They are going to miss that role. They're going to miss his leadership. They're going to miss a guy who's in there each and every snap. And not only that, but Al-Quadin Muhammad also left. So on that defensive line, that was a guy they had to replace on the edge as well. So there's going to be an opportunity there. But a guy like Jack Campbell can do it all too. And here's a guy who's now an all-pro, a guy who does not miss games, has not missed a game as a pro yet. He is ready to take on that added role of being a leader, take on that added role of helping this defense in other ways. To have him signed was crucial going forward to this group. Now they're expected to get Malcolm Rodriguez back from injury. He's another guy who plays with his hair on fire. He's going to be fun to watch. They drafted Jimmy Rolder again in the draft to be another linebacker in that core that he's going to come along and challenge for opportunities and playing time this season. So we'll see how far he can come in his rookie year. But it's going to be a fun group to watch, a talented group to watch. That room is deep, but you had to keep a guy like Jack Campbell in place. You had to pay him accordingly. And I think that when you listen to Jack Campbell talk, and he talked about, I didn't need to be the highest paid guy, but he's one of these guys who's got a chip on his shoulder. And he said he's not out to prove people who doubt him wrong. He's out to prove those who believed in him right. And I think he's one of those glass half empty, half full sort of things. He's looking at the glass half full. He's looking at an opportunity to continue to prove himself to the people who believe in him, and that's this Lions group and his teammates and the guys in that room. And I think that this is a baller that really represents and is part of this identity for this Detroit Lions team. Glad to see him there, and he's going to be everything he's going to be paid to be.
Any Lions fans listening to this podcast are just screaming and tearing their hair out of their head because I misspoke. I still have Bengals on the brain and Ravens trades. I said Trey Hendrickson and I was thinking Aiden Hutchinson.
Another good player.
Apologies. You must have been ready to just switch off yourself. But Aiden Hutchinson, of course, is the spiritual leader that I was referring to in terms of that elite edge rusher. But with him in mind, he's a guy that has suffered injuries over the last couple of seasons as well, and a guy who, in terms of generating a pass rush, does shoulder a lot of that burden. Can you see the Lions? And I know, look, we're on a day today where we're all talking about the huge Myles Garrett trade and what it does for the Rams, and maybe sets every other team in the NFC back behind the Rams in terms of Super Bowl aspirations.
Big deal, right? Yeah.
Do you see the Lions going out and trying to get any little bit of cover for Aiden Hutchinson? And you're looking at names out there like a Josh Sweat, a Jadeveon Clowney, even a Von Miller that can come in and take limited snaps and just be an impact player on a part-time basis. is it on the horizon for Detroit? And how much of an impact do you think that would make in terms of freeing up Hutchinson to do what he does best?
I'm going to go back to what Dan Campbell said last season when he continued to be asked about the edge position and were they going to sign anybody? Were they going to bring in this guy? And what are they going to do about this? And he's like, we're good. That quote still gets a lot of play here in Detroit. We're good. Well, it didn't really turn out that well. You didn't make the playoffs, but the fact of the matter is they do believe in the guys they have in right now. They drafted Derek Moore in the draft in the second round. They brought in DJ Warnham, an experienced guy who's very effective against the run, to help Aiden on the other side. Having said all that, that's going to be one of the great competitions in camp to see who takes that job, and they've got a little bit of depth there as well. Ahmad Hassini, the guy that they drafted last year, didn't play much, but he's going to have an opportunity to show what he has as well. So they've got some guys on that edge they're going to give opportunity to. Now, I'm going to go back to what Glover Quinn said on one of our most recent shows. We talked about the opportunity to maybe bring in a Jadeveon Clowney or a Von Miller. He wasn't very high on Jadeveon Clowney, but he said, and this is the point that it is worth repeating, which is why I brought it up, that Aiden Hutchinson has just gone out there and played. He's gone out there. He's got that kind of elite talent. That's why he's the number 2 pick in the draft. He is that guy. He is him. But he's never had the opportunity to play alongside a guy like Von Miller with all that experience, with all that talent, to be mentored, to be brought along like that, to maybe learn some of the tricks of the trade. Von Miller said one of the reasons that he still wants to play the game is because they're still falling for the old tricks. Well, he's a crafty veteran. He's still got some juice in the tank. And to have an opportunity to have a guy like that on your sideline, in your practice, in your room, each and every day to learn from, I think those kinds of things would really help Aiden Hutchinson along. I think that Glover Quinn thought that they could help Aiden Hutchinson along. Do I think it's going to happen? No, I don't. I think that I'm going to go back to that quote again. We're good, and we're going to go with what we've got. We're going to continue to ball out. We've proven that we're an elite team. We're qualified to make the playoffs, a Super Bowl contender. So I think they're going to go with what they've got. But, man, it sure would be good for Aiden to have somebody like that to really pick the brain of and get tutored along and mentored along at this point in his career before he hangs them up. So Von Miller would really be appealing as far as that goes, but that's on the Christmas wish list, and I don't know that Santa's leaving that under the tree this year.
It's funny you mentioned Von Miller, because if you go back and watch the 2015 America's Game documentary, you listen to Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware, and they talk about each other in that exact same way. DeMarcus Ware fed off of Von Miller's energy and his youthful exuberance when he came in, and Von Miller was the guy that just asked questions to DeMarcus Ware, learned about different techniques and how to be a leader, how to be a locker room guy. So look, there is a lot to be said of that proper, the perfect blend of youth and experience in a locker room. But if Dan Campbell says they're good, then they're good. I'm not going to argue with Dan Campbell.
They have to stay healthy. That's really it's going to come down to that, really, Kieran. They have to stay healthy on both sides of the ball to find out what this football team really and truly is, and just if they're good or not. I do believe they're good, but I need to see all these players, and they need to see themselves on the field to show who they are going forward. You can't miss a guy like Brian Branch. You can't miss a Kirby Joseph all year long. You can't miss an Aiden Hutchinson for most of your season and think you're the same team. So they have to stay healthy on the field. Yeah.
And Dan Campbell, before I let you go, Trevor, and it's been a pleasure speaking to you and getting into the nuts and bolts of the Lions. But Dan Campbell doesn't mince his words, and he has been on record in saying that you have to take the opportunities when they come, because there's no such thing. He doesn't. I don't think he fully believes in windows. He said that you have to take your opportunities because you just never know when you're going to get them again. When you look at what the Rams have done this week, when you look at how Chicago have tooled up within the division, and as you can see behind me, I'd like to think that Green Bay might have something to say about that NFC North this season. But when you bear all that in mind, and then you look at the talent that this Lions team has, I have to very much believe that there is a Super Bowl window, or they are still, if there is a Super Bowl window, they're still well within it.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. If you believe in windows, the window is wide open for these guys right now. It's a very young core. That's why they've taken care of these guys. That's why they want them around. They've paid them, like I said, sent that message to the guys in the room, sent the message across the league. We're going to take care of our guys. These are the guys we believe in. And we've talked about a lot of these guys: Aiden Hutchinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph. This kind of talent is what it takes to win a Super Bowl. They've got this kind of talent in the room. I do think that Myles Garrett going to the Rams was a big, big grab for them. It does make them even tougher competition as far as getting out of the NFC and getting to the Super Bowl from that side of the bracket. But I do think that this team has the depth. Like I say, with these guys back, being healthy, they've got the experience. They've got added depth with that health, with these guys returning to full health. They're going to do all they can to keep them on the field because they do believe that window is now. It is open. These guys are young, but now is the time. They have to seize the day. They have to seize this opportunity. That's what they're going to do. They're going to do everything they possibly can to claim that prize while they still can with this group right now. But that's what it's going to take. It's going to take health, and it's going to take opportunity. It's going to take a little bit of good fortune along the way, but they've set themselves up for that.
We're so grateful here on the Irish NFL Show to be part of the Bleav Network and to meet members of the Bleav families, such as Trevor Thompson. Trevor, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. To those listening, please like, subscribe, and tune in wherever you get your podcasts. Trevor, thanks so much for your time.
Fantastic, Kieran. Great to be on with you. Thanks for having me. Anytime.
We have the tech to get food delivered in 15 minutes, but we all have horror stories about buying tickets. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage. Get amazing tickets in just a few taps. Fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And the Game Time guarantee means authentic tickets at the best price every time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to concerts, sports, comedy, and more with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.